anyone for this clip. So we wanted to see like the empathy circle, how it could be applied to XR. So one way it can be applied is how we just did it, in terms of sort of community building. It can be a sort of a foundation too, I think, for a people's assembly. Like in a people's assembly, people go into small groups, and those small groups could use empathic listening with each other as a way of sort of connecting, maybe in smaller groups. And it's also good for personal support. So if it came up about doing actions, that we have an empathy tent that we set up periodically here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when we set up the tent, we start with an empathy circle, right? We're in an action. We were set up at like Occupy Wall Street. We had set up there. We set up at different demonstrations. And we start with sort of a check-in with the empathy circle. And it's a way to really ground and get connected. Because when you have anxieties and you share those anxieties, it's grounding and it's very supportive, as well as dealing with any sort of, kind of emotional, trauma, alienation, depression, all those difficult feelings. It's like my mother always used to say is sorrows shared or sorrows halved, joys shared or joys doubled. So I think that's another aspect of how, for sort of the community building part. It came up in our group about someone was wanting to take actions, was wondering about how does that tie in with sort of this community building. And then the idea was to actually do both, do an occupation where we set up empathy circles, like in front of the city hall, your parliaments or whatever the government structure is, and that we do empathy circles there. But the demand is that the officials take part in empathy circles. So that's a way of actually sort of spreading it. If we had the parliamentarians, or the Democrats, or the Republicans actually doing empathy circles, it's a way of sort of spreading the practice by people being able to see it. And Lou and I, we've talked with our congressmen. We've also held some empathy circles with candidates running for local office. And it's also really good for mediation. So we've been talking with some of the mediation community groups in XR, that if you can get people who are in conflict into an empathy circle, and I think Adrian, we're going to be talking about that, but he left, he has some conflict. We've done sort of empathy circles with, just interpersonal conflicts, and you just have a couple hours, several hours to talk through these issues, and it sort of unwinds them. And so there's a lot of other ideas. And so, we're looking at how to kind of spread the practice as sort of this foundational practice. So maybe we can just go through quickly and just share, take 30 seconds or 45, I guess go 45 seconds, just how do you imagine empathy circles, could be used in your XR group? And if Bill, you would kind of do the timekeeping again.
Sure. Okay. Do you want me to call on people?
Yeah, if you would.
Oh, sure. Joe.
Thank you. I think in terms of helping the XR groups reach out to the local community, so I liked what I saw with the term empathy cafe in that sense, because one of the things it's good to do anyway is to connect with people outside of XR, so XR connect with people outside XR, and it's something that people would be interested in doing. So yeah, I think that's one thing.
Okay, great. Peter Anderson.
I'm kind of like a bit of the awkward squad in XR. I find some of this stuff a bit alienating, because it's just, I'm in Labour Party and normal sort of democratic things, and there's a lot of bad stuff, but at least you kind of know the rules and it's normal. But I just find, I'm just throwing this out as an idea, but there's a lot of weird just odd way of doing stuff. And I mean, like, you know, we get like 1 minute to discuss things a lot of the time in our local group, and it just seems there's some very frustrating stuff. So I'm just throwing that there for people to think about.
Okay, great. Edwin.
Mm.
Edwin?
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Me?
Yeah.
I kind of went. I kind of gave the
Oh,
introduction.
I'm sorry.
But I
All right.
will add one more thing, since you did call on me, is
Okay.
one thing I'm imagining is street activism, where we have a row of listeners. Like when we do this with the Empathy Tent, we've got, 10, 20 people listening, and it's like, come and sit, and we have chairs across from us,
Mhm.
and we invite the public that's walking down, come and be listened to. It's like XR, we listen. Right. So it's not just we're here to, make your day, kind of, stress you out by blocking the road or something. It's like we're here to listen. So it would create a sense of being willing to listen. And people could sit down and just talk for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes and be empathically heard. So that's it. Thanks.
Okay, sorry. Sean.
Yeah, I think it can be used in lots of ways. And I think also you get better at it, don't you, the more you do it. So it might be a bit clunky at the moment because we're all practicing it maybe for the first time, but I think you just get better at listening and reflecting. And I think it would be useful as part of the reflection process in groups, reflecting on actions, that whole sort of action reflection bit. But also I'm wondering if it can be used at the end of trainings and at the end of maybe delivering the Heading for Extinction talk with the audience. So as a way of getting people talking and making that more interactive, I'm going to look at maybe doing that, splitting people into groups after those who want to stay to talk about where they're at, having just listened to that talk. And after trainings, when you're training your group members up, de-escalation training or rights training or whatever, to split them into groups afterwards to talk about where they're at after the training. And also it's practice then, isn't it, as well?
Great. Alison?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've got many suggestions to add. I mentioned in our smaller group, I thought it would be a good structure for affinity group meetings in XR. I also I think in a way, just to get some practice, personally, I want to look for some friends who are interested in the ecological crisis and to do it with them. But otherwise, I love some of the suggestions. I particularly like the idea of combining it with turning it into an action.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, Dita?
Yeah, I think several of the suggestions I had have been said. For instance, in the affinity groups, I think it would be very useful at many, many levels. So before starting an action or things like that, if time allows. And it would be kind of neat to offer it as a service. I mean, not for profit, but just, like Edwin was saying, that you have a row of people, but also just have like, okay, we are an empathy circle and people can come and talk to us in this format as part of XR or not.
Great. Peter McFadden. Peter?
Lots of lovely stuff and lots of ideas. What Edwin said at the beginning, I absolutely agree. All of those things I can see as being really, really useful. We would do.
Okay, I'm sorry, Peter. You seem to be breaking up, at least for me. I don't know. So I don't want to. Yeah, okay. So I don't want to cut you off. Okay. So what we'll do is I'll go on to. Okay, and then maybe Peter can. Oh, are you there? Okay. Eva has to go. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, now my screen's bouncing all over. Okay, Debbie, save me.
I'm your savior. I'm feeling like really excited now, and I can see how we can practice within our group the skills, and that will help us actually really connect well as a group, just by using Empathy Cafe principles just to practice those skills. But if it's linked to a future action, then it gives it a purpose. And I really like the idea of doing an Empathy Cafe outside the National Assembly in Wales. And I'd really like politicians to have an opportunity to be empathised with as human beings, because I think possibly they have to, be behind their political kind of garb, if you like. But actually, most will probably be family people and, have their own concerns, and to be able to give them an opportunity to be empathised with, I think would be really beautiful. And also I like it from a de-escalation point of view as well.
Great. Okay. Mila. Mila, do you hear me? She looks frozen. Okay. Maybe there's a... All right, Richard. Oh, you're... Yeah.
I'm there. What I think what I sense is the real potential is some kind of hangout group like this group over different XR groups in the world. And a full way to connect across countries, cities, cultures. So that's one thing that I would like to add. That's the thing. And I also like the other ideas, but this is something that I didn't hear yet.
Okay. And Mila, are you with us? No? All right. Try to get your communication better. We'll try to get back to you. Lou.
I agree with a lot of what's been said already. And I also don't know the XR community that well, but I would say that I think any activity or process where reflection is part of the process, or exploration where people are trying to explore their own thinking or understand the thinking of others, I think this process is very good, like as a component of another process. Again, a component of a process where you're taking time to try to understand yourself better in your own thinking or someone else's thinking or many other people's thinking. I think it's very effective for that. And I imagine there are lots of different areas in XR where reflection and understanding is a component of the process that's going on.
Okay. Mila, it looks like can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Would you like to give your 2 cents?
Sure. 2 cents here. Maybe one big one for me is inviting conflict in connecting, and actually accepting judgment as a gift. That was for MVC, and I think this is common in XR community, in circles community. So if we could just extend it to the conflict and not to be so frightened of it, and get to our inner conflict. There's something there.
Thank you.
What do you think?
You don't want to get me started. All right. Ivy. Can you hear me, Ivy? There you go.
Yeah, I'm getting the hang of this. Okay. So I know that in a lot of the XR chapters that I've heard from, and in our own, we talk a lot about hierarchy and breaking down hierarchy. And it's like very stressful for a new person to come into a group, although a lot of people are, that have heard of XR, they want to join XR. I think this is a very good way to welcome new members and, listen to them and get to know them. And because everybody has a turn and everybody has an equal amount of time, everyone is equal. They don't have to worry about who's the leader, and they don't have to worry about like we're trying to come to a decision. We're just being patient with each other, which is really refreshing.
Great. Liz.
Hi, sorry about that. I could see a real value in using this practice within our own little activist groups here. There's been a lot of conflict within. We've been really fragmented, and stuff has been really hard. We just kind of hit the ground running and didn't know what we were doing. And we do need a structure, and this would be. We've got kind of a structure, which is like the talking stick thing, but what if we transform that into a listening stick or something? I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking it through, but I can definitely see a real value to our own little groups getting really good at practicing this and then going out to spread it.
Great. Okay. Stephen.
Yeah, the following on something that Liz just brought up there about talking stick, which is really just another way of roundtable discussion without being interrupted, doesn't necessarily require active listening. And so that's why this empathy circles is a step above that. But I think there's a lot of false listening going on with town hall meetings and forums and so forth, that when you go to them, they're publicized by politicians as a place to people be listened to, but they're not. So I think there needs to be consensus on standards on what these different tools are and what they are not, So you can call them out and say, I came to this roundtable, but it's all over the place. Nobody's moderating. And calling it out. So thank you.
Okay. And Carolina, my screen shifted. Did you have a chance? I don't think you had a chance to speak yet. Have you? No. Okay.
No, I didn't. I like the idea of listening stick. I like it very much. I was thinking that empathy circle is, I see two aspects. One is process of changing myself, changing my attitude and changing culture. And second, which is also an aspect of change, of transition, but it's kind of small piece of structure within bigger, broader structures like check-ins, check-outs done by empathy circles, onboarding with empathy circles, street actions when we use empathy circles with our opponents and people who go fighting with us. Calling for empathy circle if there is any tension in a group. Brainstorming, decision-making process might be used. I see a lot of moments when we can use it as a small part of bigger process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And I believe everybody's gone except for me. And I just wanted to reiterate, I really like Edwin's idea of being expressive. I think that XR would be an excellent way to present citizens assembly products, decisions, their ideas. That could be topics for the listening circle, as well as listening to people. Also, people have talked about how, you can do like a listening circle at the beginning and then get on to your regular, conversation. It can be used in a multiplicity of ways. So, and as always, I want to really express my appreciation for new people who struggled for it. That's the kind of growth I think that I look for in myself, and I think that we all need. So thank you. Edwin?
Thanks, Bill, for facilitating that. Yeah, so thanks everyone that stayed the extra half an hour or so. So I really appreciate it. This is really going to be great to harvest this material. I'm going to edit it together to kind of make the case so we can kind of spread the empathic listening or active listening throughout XR. Just really see it as a core skill. So thank you very much for taking part, and hope to see you on the 25th. And thanks to all the facilitators for, taking the responsibility to help facilitate. And, after doing a couple of these, you can also be a facilitator. So we really encourage you to kind of step up and become a facilitator. So thanks
Thank you
again. Good to see
Thank
everyone.
you and see you. Thank you very much.
And if anybody wants to stay and chat a little bit, you're welcome to. We can take a few minutes here. If anyone has anything you want to say, just as follow-up.
You can stop recording.
Oh, yes, thank you. You're always so